Hi everyone, this is the Chrissy B Show, a program aimed at looking after our mental health and well-being. Today we're going to be exploring the most commonly diagnosed mental disorder of children, which can continue into adulthood, and that's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. We'll be talking about the signs that your child may have ADHD and also giving you tips on what to do about it. My guests today are Mark Williams, who was branded a troublemaker at school due to his undiagnosed ADHD. We also have our resident psychologist, Dr Audrey Tang, who will be telling us more about the condition, the signs that a child has it, and what to do as a parent, and what you can do if you have the condition yourself. And I'll also be speaking to fitness and nutrition expert Benjamin Cooper on the types of foods and sports that are great for children and adults with ADHD. And later we'll be hearing from parenting coach Sharon Lawton on how to deal with children that are simply acting up, and also to children's behaviour mentor Ricky Dean, who also gives some tips for teachers. But first, let's have a little chat with Audrey Tang about what ADHD is and the signs that your child may have it. Welcome to the show, Audrey.
Thank you. Thanks, Chrissy.
So I know you're knowledgeable about so many different subjects, and we haven't spoken about this one before, have we?
No, this one's a different one, and this one means quite a lot to me because I used to train teachers, and that's one of the important things that we did actually talk about was ADHD. Right. Okay. One of the things to look out for.
So tell us, what exactly is it?
Well, it's three things. It is attention deficit, it is hyperactivity, and it's impulsivity. And it's symptoms of each of those things. For example, attention deficit, not being able to complete tasks, not concentrating on when somebody's trying to instruct you, hyperactivity, running around, having tons and tons of energy, and impulsivity, just blurting things out without thinking about it first, those sorts of things. But you need to see at least 6 of the symptoms on each of those 3 elements for a minimum of 6 months, and they can't be either indicative of another issue such as Asperger's, schizophrenia or anything else, and it must be relevant to that child's age. It's not very fair to say to a 2-year-old, don't run around, when 2-year-olds enjoy running around. So you've got to kind of watch for usually a period of a few weeks before you can really see those patterns.
Okay. But the thing is, I mean, some parents would say, well, it's normal, like you said, you know, for kids to run around or maybe not to listen sometimes. So when would you really know there is an issue here that I need to get my child checked out?
If it's not just you that's saying it, so for example, if you're getting not complaints, but you're getting concerns from school, usually if it's happening in a minimum of 2 different settings, then you know to look into it a little bit further.
Okay, so not just school, maybe they're like that, but just everywhere.
Everywhere, yes,
okay, then. All right. So afterwards, we're also going to be speaking to Mark Williams, who has ADHD, and you know he was branded as a troublemaker. Unfortunately, that's what can happen when people don't understand what it is, and that could also lead to all sorts of issues.
Well, they're doing a lot now in schools because everyone understands it a lot more. And one of the nice examples is something called a wobble cushion. So instead of a child fidgeting all the time, actually sit them on, it's like a little, almost like a beanbag, and you can't help wobbling if you're sitting on it, but at least you're allowed to do that, which means you're not told off for fidgeting. So there's a lot of things that can be done.
Right, which we're going to get into a bit more later on.
Yes.
Thank you, Audrey, but now it's time also to go to the news with Helena Shaw. Welcome to the show, Helena.
Thank you, Chrissy. So, another great topic, as always. So some of the world's most accomplished people, athletes, musicians, actors, you name it, they struggle with ADHD, which used to be, I think, called ADD, if I'm right, when I was at school.
We'll ask Audrey about that.
I'm sure, but then they added the H bit. Anyway, but they've not let the disorder get in the way. In fact, they've been incredibly successful. So I'm going to talk about a few celebrities, if you like, as I'm going through the news, and some other bits and pieces. So it's not all about children. But also, if your loved one has ADHD, there are some new great apps that have been developed in 2016, which are really good. I don't know if they'd be great for everybody, but there's one app which is free, which is always a good thing, and it helps you accomplish tasks while improving your time management skills. It sort of sounds like everyone could do with something like that. And also the app was really, really helpful. One user said they were able to reduce their ADHD medication substantially.
Yeah.
So although it didn't make absolutely huge dramatic results, it obviously made their life.
It helps.
Yeah. So really, really good. Moving on to somebody I've worked with who I love dearly, Rory Bremner, who is an impressionist and comedian. He stated that living with ADHD is hell. He says is hell. So I mean, obviously he's 55 now, and he actually diagnosed himself. He saw somebody, a member of family or something, had a similar situation, and that's how he knew he had it too. And it was a great interview that he had on 5 Live. It's really good that you can hear, and it made it so desperately hard to live with. And he also talks, which is an interesting thing, he talks about how constantly punishing children, this brings me back to school days again, where we had lots of naughty people in the school, and instead of, you didn't think at the time that it could be something like that, they were just reprimanded and shouted at. But he was saying, keep on punishing children with ADHD, it harms their development and strips away self-belief, which you can see. And obviously he became a comedian, so he was saying it's so great to be laughed with and at, but not for ADHD, for obviously his skill, which is interesting. And also Jim Carrey, who also has ADHD, remembers coping with it by being the class clown. So again, a lot of energy in that. Another quite interesting thing, not 100% how it's done, but ADHD sufferers, and I'm saying ADHD an awful lot, I feel, can go undiagnosed for such a long time, but there's now new online tests which offer a fast diagnosis, which obviously is very, very good in lots of ways because it means quicker care, but also the cost of failing to identify ADHD is quite expensive. So that's a really good thing, and apparently the new online tests can be used in schools and clinics, so obviously that's really welcome. Moving on to a story which is really quite sad. I mean, it just shows how ignorant some people can be. This was just in the news recently. So Adrienne Thierry, who suffers with ADHD, her bosses mocked her and actually CC'd her into the emails, which is dreadful.
What purpose?
I mean, I think it was an accident, but still it escalated. It started when she was hired as a manager within a design company. It was, I think, July 2015 or something. In May 2016, she actually had a bonus of about £12,000, which obviously shows she was doing quite well to get a bonus. And then she actually spoke to a colleague and also her bosses and explained, that she had it. She felt the need that she wanted to tell them, and was completely humiliated because they had this really mean-spirited exchange. And then she was actually fired not long afterwards. So, but she's taken it through the courts. But it's horrible because obviously it's in writing, which is unusual. You just don't expect it, do you?
No, especially when someone's actually. She didn't have to say anything. And you think that if you actually go and tell your employer, the people that you work with, about something that you're going through, that they would support you and be understanding, because she felt the need to say something for a reason. Absolutely. And then to be treated that way, that's terrible. Yeah,
so really, really sad. Anyway, moving on, hopefully she'll do well. So the Rio 2016 Olympics have started, which is so exciting. Well, for me, I really love it. And a great role model, and something I'm going to speak about now, and is the Olympian gymnast Louis Smith, who's now 27. And he's fired up, another dream of an Olympic medal. But he was talking about how ADHD has helped him basically to Olympic glory, which is really it's a lovely story, but just trying to give a few snippets. So he was diagnosed at 7. He'd be awake all night. He had no sense of time management, or the typical things. His mum, a single mum, used to take him to gymnastics, and eventually by the age of 9, she was actually taking him 5 times a week, a huge distance. He even came off the drug Ritalin, which because he felt it affected his training, because he could cope with it. That's a drug that they're giving. So all of the things he's done, he won bronze in Beijing. 2013, he had bronze and silver medals in London. He won Strictly Come Dancing, My Secret Past, Living with ADHD, just listing all the things that are so great. And he even written an autobiography. And one of his things that he stated, I am my own person, I don't follow a crowd, I'm different, I'm outspoken, I'm passionate. But he's really pushed himself, and his mum really is his dream. He's really, really helped him, which is lovely. And moving on to Michael Phelps, also, 31, the swimmer. He's lovely to see him carrying the United States flag during the Olympic opening, but his mum was his absolute hero and really focused him. Swimming was the thing that got him through everything, and he's 18 gold medals, 22 medals overall, and actually is the first American male swimmer to qualify for 5 Olympics, which is such an achievement, isn't it? Moving on to other people, Jamie Oliver, star chef. He basically had ADHD as a child, and it makes sense now because of his healthy eating, all the things that he's doing, junk food, etc., eliminating certain things. So Richard Branson, and interestingly, a quote which was mentioned, it says, Branson's living proof of the statistic reported in Psychology Today that people with ADHD are 300% more likely to start their own company.
Oh, really?
Which is great, which is really good. So I'm just going to whiz through a few other people. So Will.i.am, he stated that music serves as his ADHD therapy. Paris Hilton struggled since she was 12 and is on Adderall. Solange Knowles, who's Beyonce's sister, found out she had ADHD. She didn't believe it and had a few tests, and obviously people used to think that she was just completely mad because she was always so loud. Will Smith, and I'll finish on Justin Timberlake. So there are so many people, but it's actually so inspiring to see how well they've done. They've achieved so much.
And it really depends, obviously, on how you see things as well, and the support, because that's really, really important, getting the right help, getting the right support, and you can still thrive.
Yes.
Brilliant. Helena, thank you so much.
Thank you,
and we'll
Chrissy.
see you again next time. Thank you. Right, guys, so don't go away, because after the break, we'll be joined by Mark Williams to talk about his experience with the condition. Welcome back, everyone, to our show all about living with ADHD. And now I have joining me Mark Williams. Hello, Mark.
Hiya.
Now, you've seen Mark before because he came on quite recently, didn't you, Mark, to talk about postnatal depression in men. It was a great show, and if you guys missed that, please do head over to our YouTube channel, and the show is then. There were some really good tips that you gave, and just the fact that you were so open, I believe, is really going to help other men to open up about what they're feeling as well. But today's a different subject, because you have just saying you've been through quite a bit. Still smiling and still achieving, which is wonderful. And we still have Audrey with us as well. Audrey, you're going to be giving us some of your comments and feedback on what Mark says. So tell us about your experience with ADHD. How were you at school as a child? What was going on?
Yeah, well, obviously it wasn't diagnosed till later on in my life, till I was 40 years of age. When in school, obviously I couldn't concentrate in school, but I know now. Very impulsive. You know, I'd do silly things. I put pins into some of these you know, very into my pranks and different things, and obviously schooling was a lot different then. Obviously you'd have a trip across a year, or you know, cyborgs get picked up. You know, it was different schooling to then. But yeah, I was very much you know, wouldn't even think of consequences. You know, I would just couldn't concentrate, wasn't interested in the subjects, a lot of it as well. So
nothing that kind of grabbed your attention.
Similarly, I'm very bored. You know, and obviously looking out the window. And obviously I'd be told off for certain things. Obviously sport was my channel, you know, in school, like, you know. But
how did you feel about yourself at school then? If like teachers were just telling you off all the time and giving you clips around the ear and that kind of stuff, did that kind of affect your self-esteem?
Absolutely. Well, I was told by one teacher that I would never get a job, you know. So at 15,
Why did teachers say things like
that?
I don't get it.
It still affected me at that point when I like we mentioned about people with business mind. You know, I had my own window cleaning around at 13. You know, and you know, doing money and window. You know, so when a teacher said to me, you know, you're never going to get a job, obviously it did have an impact. I think it give me a drive to actually prove him wrong, really, as well. You know? So, but yeah, you know, it's not just me, but it was other children. I felt went through a lot of hardship. But also, we were told just to clean the cupboards and just to get distracted, you know, because obviously not to distract the other children, you know, in the class as well, you know. So
did you really stand out then from the other kids, or were there other kids that were?
I wasn't really naughty as such as naughty, but I was just like, I was, you know, I wasn't like the other children, you know, other people, I suppose, when I'm looking back. I just, you know.
How were you at home? When you were at home, were
you
the same?
At that time, I was never in the house. I was always out playing sport. Lucky enough, it was my youth club helped me, really. That when I was getting low self-esteem in school, my youth club actually said, look, Mark, you can do this. And I went on to be a Welsh I'm British champion, like, you know, so obviously...
Nobody just drops these things in, like, hang on, what?
So yeah, so and then other sports I was thing. So at that, you know, like I said, we talked about, you know, Michael Phelps, you know, that was my, you know, focus, and I enjoyed it, really enjoy sport, like, so, and you know, I was unfortunately, it was times when I look back, you know, running across the road when concentrating, you know, you know, and obviously, you know, climbing up electric pylons, and you know, when you think of
things. Did you ever have
like
any accidents?
No, well, I got a lot of scars on my face. You know, but yeah, I was very much a risk taker, you know, then. And so
I didn't know that was one of the elements. It's quite dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, channeled. If energy's not channeled, you will want to find lots of new things to do. Yeah. It's the boredom aspect, and because you're trying to find something to fill that boredom, you can start doing anything. And of course, with the impulse control issues, it's hard to sit there and think, if I climb this pylon, what are the consequences, before you're already halfway up the pylon.
So. And even talking, you know, very impulsive talking, and even now, like, I say things and I worry if I said the wrong things to that person, and that can obviously cause. I've got coping skills like CBT in place now, obviously, but you know, I just worry about things. Oh, I shouldn't have said that, and I didn't mean to say it. It just come out. Yeah. So there's a lot of things.
I'm really glad you're speaking about this, Mark, because, you know, people in general are very judgmental, and, you know, we kind of label people as, oh, that guy's so weird, or look at the way she's acting, and we have no idea what's actually going on in the background and what that person is actually going through. And I just love it when people like you come on and you're so open about things, because it's just so good because I'm learning now as well. It's something that I didn't even think of before. I'm learning, the viewers are learning, and hopefully through doing this, like, a lot, we can actually get to other people and say, look, let's be more understanding. Let's just not label people and say that person's weird or keep away from them, but actually just understand one another better.
Exactly, yeah. Like you said, you know, I've used it into a positive now after, but it's looking back at my schooling, you know, I left school with no qualifications at 15. Obviously, went into mental health, and obviously the other stuff I'm doing now. What I found, if I'm interested in something, I can hyper focus on it. I can really channel all my energy into it, but it's got to take my attention. Obviously, boredom. We mentioned about boredom. I got lists of things. You know, for years I've had a diary, and I got to fill that diary up. You know, with stuff really as well to keep me occupied. Like, could be some things that. But you know, I've gone from bungee jumping to things, you know, traveling around the world, you know, backpacking, you know, just impulsive, just up and gone. Like, so it's benefiting me as well.
It sounds exciting though, the way you just, because a lot of people, like, without the condition, they will just, like, think about doing something and never actually do it. But you just get up and do it.
I don't think of it. I just, you know, just go. You know, it was times when people said, "Oh, you can't leave our job. You got a job for life," and I just all of a sudden I pack up and, you know, travel around Europe on a train and. You know, and different things like that. So I've had a eventful life, if I'm honest. So I think it's like I said, it's part of me, and like my wife's, you know, unfortunately, you know, in the morning I could be playing air guitar at 7 o'clock in the morning and very hyperactive.
Is she quite understanding though?
Very well, yeah. I think she gets it now. Obviously, she knows about it now. Obviously, because obviously I've been diagnosed. But very, you know, I could talk all day, like, you know, as you.
It's great. Audrey, based on what Mark said so far, what do you think?
What's quite nice actually is I think the worlds are getting closer together now. When you were at school, schooling was very different. It was chalk and talk the whole time. Of course, it's not going to stimulate anyone, let alone a child with ADHD. No. Now, as teachers, everyone is learning different ways of running activities, having short, sharp tasks, having time limits, having competition, finding different ways of challenging children, and that's making a difference. Similarly, sadly, very few jobs for life now, so you can just up and go. And in a way, the world is changing to suit somebody who is willing to just say, you know what, I feel like doing this today, as long as it's not hurting anybody. That's great. And in many ways, the energy, I mean, what I love about that is just feeling the energy from you. It's contagious, and that's absolutely wonderful. But on the flip side, of course, the serious side, it is important to be able to manage it. And when we say manage it, it's channeling that energy in the right direction. And sport is the most wonderful way of doing it, partly because it gives you a sense of achievement, first of all, because you can get something right. And in many ways, reading, writing, if you have to concentrate really hard, it's not as easy to succeed in. But sport, there are clear rules as well, so you know what the boundaries are, you know what you have to do. You're also working with other people, and sometimes a child with ADHD finds it quite difficult to read social signals from other people and understand socialisation. But in a team, you know who you have to work with, how you have to work with them, and so on. So sport is one of the best ways, and of course it allows you to expend all that energy, which means you sleep better, and of course sleep is so important as well.
You just remind me, because obviously one of the things I do over talk as well. So if somebody's talking, I do try and get in, get in. But also when it comes to work, I actually have about 50 jobs, believe it or not.
Have you?
50 jobs, because I just got bored in the job and move on to the next job. Like, until I got into actually working for myself, which I found was the best way to do it, work for myself.
Did you ever go back to talk to your teacher? That one that said that you'd never get a job?
No, I think
50 jobs.
yeah. And anyone who knows me from where I live will say, "Oh, what are you selling this week? What are you selling?" Because that's one thing I was good at sales as well, you know. But I think when I work for myself, doing what I'm doing now, public speaking, and I work for myself, and I think.
It's interesting, actually. Do you get bored of doing that?
I love that.
Why is that, Audrey?
I think actually your choice of focus. It's the same thing with whenever. You have children, you want them to learn a musical instrument, you want them to learn a sport. And often you can kind of cajole a child who doesn't want to do it to carry on doing it. But someone with ADHD, actually, it's very difficult. If they don't enjoy it, they're not going to want to do it. But in the same way, if they do enjoy something, it's much easier to focus. However, if the day comes that you do get bored of it, you'll switch to something else, just like that. And in some ways, working for yourself allows that, because it's less obvious in a way. If you've decided that you're going to focus on public speaking on this area first of all, but then the next day you feel like, actually I might be interested in this area, you can make that change without it being this dramatic kind of thing. So actually working for yourself is one of the best ways of coping.
You know, it's right. And just saying that so many ideas got in my head, you know, so many ideas. Unfortunately, not all the ideas will go to a certain thing, and I'll change them. But ideas, constantly ideas racing around my mind.
But I'm wondering as well, the fact that you are loving the public speaking and you have been doing it for a while now, haven't you? Maybe because he knows that he's helping other people in some way, and maybe that's kind of keeping the interest in a sense.
It's a big drive. I think that's a big thing for anybody who is lucky enough to be in what is effectively a service profession, giving help to other people. It's very, very positive, and you get that reward as well. One of the big things is rewarding a child with ADHD in particular, because rewards don't come very often. Often they're being shouted at, often they're being told off. But if you reward a child with ADHD will respond to positive reinforcement, and having that sort of reward of people saying, "Oh, thank you, I get it," and also you make a connection with them too. So it's almost like self-healing in a way as well. It's connecting with others who have the same things, been through the same things, and maybe felt I'm just on my own here. And I think what people don't realise is that ADHD it's a chemical change in the brain. It's not something it can be managed with drug therapy, somatic therapy, and in most cases actually it has to be for that person to be able to function on a normal level, to be able to then learn and so on. It's not quite the same as other mental disorders where you can get to the root of the issue. Sometimes with ADHD, you've just got to cope, and you've got to learn those coping strategies. And if one of them is empowering others and connecting with others, great. It works for you. You should do it. You know,
it's taken like well, it was a shock to find out I was diagnosed.
I was going to say, how come you got diagnosed so late?
After having a breakdown in 2011, obviously then being in the mental health community team, seeing a psychiatrist. First psychiatrist after 2.5 hours, and then I'd report off my mother. He said I had ADHD. Unfortunately, I went to another psychiatrist, and then he said I had bipolar within 10 minutes. And then I went to another psychiatrist, and then after doing talks, a lady up in North Wales said, "Mark, can I have a chat to you? I think you've got ADHD," and she was a specialist in it. And I said, "Well, I've left the service now." She said, "Go back, get your diagnosis, because you are." And that's one thing, you know, it's adult ADHD obviously we are a missed generation really at my age, you know. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the prison service as well, which should be diagnosed as well, because obviously they're using negative coping skills like drinking, drugs,
Because people see it as a childhood thing, don't they? A lot of people. And
But you grow up with it. A child with ADHD is going to be an adult with ADHD. Yes, you can do things to affect that, and good nutrition can make a difference. However, if you aren't as lucky to have a change in diet, and of course, we're eating junk food all the time, and with a fast-paced world, it isn't quite so easy. You will grow up to be an adult with ADHD. It doesn't just disappear.
Okay. Yeah, it is, and I think one of the things when I read the book about ADHD, it was like all these jigsaw pieces just come together, and I thought... You
felt like you understood yourself finally?
Yeah.
Because did you wonder, like, why am I like this?
I knew it was something wrong. I just knew, it just, for years I struggled, and, I found out obviously I had dyslexia as well, obviously OCD is a mental OCD, I would say, very, got lists of things, I got losing things, keys, my mind's overrunning all the time, just couldn't stop sometimes, So obviously, when I read the book about it as well afterwards, I was like, oh, this is me, and then so lucky enough, with the help of a lady called Zoe Piper, actually, a charity called ADHD Connections, she came with me, and then we fought, and then lucky enough, like I said, a lot of health professionals unfortunately don't get ADHD as well. So so we're trying to educate more teachers, because I think it's still happening, unfortunately, what I've been told in the school about ADHD. So we need to find out what children want to do and work around the English, around what they... So if you've got somebody who's interested in cars, let's do the English around that cars. Because that's how I've learned to spell and write better through writing about mental health.
We've got a lot to do, haven't we? With teachers and everything, we
it is slowly changing in that now, to try and keep that child within the class and not distract others, because that can happen. It is about making a different type of session for them to do, with perhaps support from the TA, seating them specifically in the classroom somewhere where they're not going to distract the others, having shorter tasks for them. I mean, you don't actually need to change what the whole class is doing, but you can tailor to suit certain individual needs. It's possible.
I'm going to keep you both on, because after the break we're going to be watching how a particular family deals with ADHD, and I'd like to get both your comments on that. So join us after this. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit chrissybshow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chrissy B Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chrissy B Show, and on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Welcome back, everyone, and today we are discussing living with ADHD. And now we'll be showing you how one particular family deals with the condition.
Father, Lord, we thank you for this wonderful day, Lord. I ask you that you keep us focused, Lord, that you keep Josiah focused, help him focus in class, be a leader that he was born to be. In the name of Jesus, I pray, amen.
What's the word for today? Focus. Okay. Focus. Josiah, bring a positive note home. Work for the positives. Bye. Have a good day. Josiah, I didn't hear your alarm. Josiah, time to get up. Come here, baby. Good morning. Go ahead, you can start making your bed, feed your animals, and then get ready for today.
Josiah was having difficulty in the classroom of staying on task, of focusing, and we were starting to get a little concerned because that energy was turning into a little bit of aggression. And then it was talking to his pediatrician, who said, I think he may have ADHD.
Current estimates are between 50 and 65% of people with ADHD will eventually have an additional diagnosis. Somewhere between 20 and 35% of individuals with ADHD will have a diagnosis of depression. Somewhere between 5 and 10% will have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, and somewhere between 25 and 40% will have an anxiety disorder.
Do I worry about that? Nope, not at all. Because I know that if I teach Josiah how to be healthy mentally, then he will develop those healthy mental habits, and he will learn his own recovery to where he will recognize triggers and he will be able to adapt and jump on it from the beginning.
ADHD is primarily diagnosed in children because it is a developmental disorder. Studies show that your brain from birth to 3 is about 85% of the actual physical development of the brain. So that's a huge amount of growth. That's a lot more room for things to go wrong.
Good job. And you made your bed.
I like to say it's a disorder of focus. If I could only pick one thing that we could put into place for a child with ADHD, it would be structure. To know what's coming next, to have a plan, to have it on the wall. 7 o'clock, you're doing this. 7:15, you're doing this. Consistency, consistency, consistency.
In order for us to really help Josiah to identify those areas that he may need to work on and change, we had to create a schedule so that we can start tracking. Then we can make the adjustments and figure out what we need to do on our end to help him to succeed. He's always been a very active and energetic child. I personally feel like it's probably genetic. My own diagnosis is depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So Josiah had a mom that had difficulty spending time with him, of really engaging with him, not because I didn't want to, but because I physically didn't have the strength to do it. And I saw him at 3 repeating some of the things that I was going through. And I didn't want that for him.
So you have a little time to play with Jax, and then we got to start your homework.
So I made sure that I put my mental health number 1. So I was able to teach him some of my same coping skills and some of my same things that I learned in my own recovery. There's so much negativity about ADHD. You think of the kids that are really flying from the ceiling fans and flipping tables and doing those things, and we've been there. Sports is something that we found that has worked probably the best out of his entire treatment plan. It is his medicine. Josiah first explained to us that when he runs, when he's moving around playing sports, it's the only time his brain sleeps. And I said, well, what does that mean? He said, that's when I relax. That's when my brain is not worried about getting in trouble. I'm not worried about if I'm making good choices or bad choices. When he's relaxed, he's able to focus, he feels confident, and that helps channel some of those negative traits and characteristics of ADHD in a more positive light. I know that Josiah, being a young African-American male, that if he doesn't get it together academically at school, behavior at school, that his resort will be the criminal justice system, that there's a place with his name already on it. And that's why I remind him every single day that you may have ADHD, but it does not have you. So you have to determine what path you want to take in life. It's your choice. At first, he thought that he was bad, and we spent so much time of reshaping and shifting those thoughts to now, in the classroom, he's a class leader in almost every class. In sports, he gets leadership recognitions because he feels like, I'm a teacher, I'm a leader, this is what I have to do to help other people.
Children with ADHD can grow up to be very successful. They have lives, they have families, they have careers, they contribute to the community, they change our world, they create, they invent, they make our world better, as long as you find a way to harness that.
Part of what I try to help Josiah with is to be aware of his thoughts, to put those things in place now so that any challenge you have in life, because we're gonna have challenges, but he'll have the coping skills to deal with that.
Tomorrow is Friday.
Even if the worst case thing can happen, Josiah will be equipped enough to handle it. Because he's developing now some skills that it took me 30 years to learn.
So thank you very much to the Mental Health channel for that video, and if you want to know more about them, do visit our contributors section on our website, chrissybshow.tv. So guys, what did you think of that video and the way that family deals with everything?
It's great. It's very inspirational, and a couple of things I noticed. First of all, it's like yourself, Mark, how Mum in the family was drawing from her own experiences and knowing that because she's been through something, that she doesn't want her child to face the same sort of stigmas or issues that she had when she was trying to cope without so much support. But the family support is so important in there. It's all about saying, hey, we're in this together. We're all going to have these sorts of routines. And I mean, one of the things that families can do is actually set up a routine for that child at 10 o'clock you do this, at 12 o'clock this happens, because that helps. And having short times, that's really nice. Even having clocks around the room can help the child, because they can then tell the time themselves. And also, sometimes actually having... sorry, my mind went blank for a second because I was just thinking about the video. But sometimes also having, well, rewards, first of all, but also changing up the rewards and having family time together, which is very important. Research has shown that having what they call green time, which is actually getting away to the country and spending a day together, can make a huge difference for a family. But the one thing which I'd just like to bring out is it's so important to be able to cope as a family, which means that if there are brothers and sisters involved, we mustn't forget them either. It's very easy for the brothers and sisters to either be left out because the child with ADHD is getting all the attention, or alternatively, the brother and sister might get short shrift when they do something naughty because mum and dad are so exhausted parenting the other child, or they're actually enlisted as surrogate parents, and that can be something schools do as well. Oh, look after your brother, look after your sister. That's not allowing them to have a childhood. So it's about being aware of siblings, and of course being aware of your own mental health as well, making sure you take breaks, making sure that you sort of find that time for yourself.
Great advice. Mark, what did you think of the video?
Yeah, especially the sports side of it, obviously. I'm lucky enough to be on the board with a new charity, which is our children actually don't want to play sport because obviously their condition, like rugby or football. So a gentleman called Tom Morgan, who was on a show last year, he's set up a charity called Mentoring UK. So we're open to tackle that and get the children that not so much they want to thrive in a sport, and unfortunately some teams or coaches don't understand the condition, and they get very pushed aside. So we want to bring these children, and like that child in the film, which is and same as me.
Really,
that was sport with me, like, you know. So I was never in the house.
Just another question now, Mark. What do you think your teachers could have done better for you when you were at school?
Obviously, like in the 80s, it was really unheard of aspect, ADHD then, especially in my school. But I think if I found my strengths and sat me down and think, okay, Mark, what will make you focus or better, or and perhaps channel that in like, for instance, I was into music and other stuff as well. But I think unfortunately I just couldn't concentrate on the lessons, you know. Unfortunately, so I think it's an hard one really, because I think unfortunately even noise in the background, you know, concentration, you know, it can't blame the teachers, or, you know, it's my condition, you know, but I know now. But it was just nice to be more understood, though. Yeah, understood. Yeah, I just think definitely. And like I said, you know, we're all different. You know, we all got different strengths, and what I find is a lot of children has got a lot of strengths with ADHD, and people like we just mentioned on, you know, Richard Branson, and you know, perhaps, you know, get him to do their own business, perhaps, you know, later on in school, like. And not be told you're never going to get a job, but you will get a job and you can start your own business one day. We need to hear more of that from everybody in general, and especially teachers. Tell us, what do you think?
It's very important for teachers to separate the behaviour from the child. It's the behaviour that's the problem, it is not the child that's the problem. And with a child with ADHD, reinforcement's very important, positive reinforcement in particular, purely because if they aren't succeeding in certain lessons, at least they can succeed in others. But explaining, of course there's going to be consequences, but explaining the consequences of behaviour is important. Sometimes even giving the child the chance to reenact what they should do, asking them, okay, what could you have done in this situation? Have a go doing it, because then they've got that experience as well. It's not shouting at them straight away. It's not sending them off to think about what they did, because that's not helpful. The other thing, as I've said before, is short, sharp tasks can be very exciting. Changing the rewards up, because of course, if you get bored very easily, you're going to get bored of rewards very easily as well, if they're the same thing. Having a chart as well can really help, because you can see how well you're doing, and that visual representation is very positive too. So there's a lot of things that I think schools are putting into place already. One nice example, I spoke about the wobble cushion earlier, but for some children who actually have a problem biting, which is one of, it can be a symptom, but it can be a symptom of other disorders as well, is something called chewelry, where they're actually allowed to chew jewellery because that's what it's there for. So you're not shouting at that child. They're fidgeting and they're fiddling with something because you've allowed them to do it. And sometimes making those exceptions can make such a difference for that child to be able to just get on with all the other stuff. The other strange thing, and I just remember a young teaching assistant that I taught, but she was telling me about her family, and she said her child was originally, they thought it could be ADHD, but actually he was deaf. But one of the biggest problems was the only time he heard his name being spoken was by the third or fourth time she'd called it. So by that point, it was as if she was yelling, say it was Mark, it was Mark, Mark!
Yeah.
And that child thinks, I'm in trouble again, and that's the only thing that they've heard. So similarly, if a child can't concentrate and they can't hear you, all they'll hear is the shout, not the first Mark. Stop that. So sometimes the visual, talking to the child visually, making them look at you can make such a difference.
You know, visual, I'm a visual learner as well. We talk about in my bedroom now. My wife, you know, we got lists of what I got to do and stuff. So that is so right. That is absolutely so right. You know, I got massive. What and only thing is I'll keep adding to that list as well. The things I got to do as well. Or I've done that, so it's a case of much focus because it can come overwhelming as well. So you've got so much going on. So the list is a very good idea.
That's actually good advice for anybody as well. Because sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and you've got so much to do. Just write it down because at least by emptying your brain you can go back to sleep. Otherwise it's going in your head. Go, I must remember it. So it's good advice for anyone.
It's been so educational today. Thank you so much, both of you. It's been great speaking to you again, Mark.
Thank you, thanks.
Amazing. If you have any other topics you'd like to speak about, you can contact me. And Audrey, we'll see you again very soon on the show as well. Thank you. All right, guys, so we haven't finished yet because after the break, I'll be speaking to fitness and nutrition expert Benjamin Cooper on the types of foods and sports that are great for children and adults with ADHD. And we'll also be hearing from parenting coach Sharon Lawton on how to deal with children that are simply acting up, and also to children's behaviour mentor Ricky Dean, who also gives some tips for teachers. Welcome back to our programme, everyone, and we've been speaking all about living with ADHD. And if you've missed the beginning of this programme, don't worry, you can head over to our YouTube channel in a few days' time, which is Chrissy B Show, and you'll find this programme there. And don't forget to subscribe because we have lots and lots of things that are great for our mental health and well-being. So now I'm joined by Benjamin Cooper, who's one of our resident guests. Hello, Ben.
Hello, how are you?
Lovely to have you here. Well, thank you. How are you?
Thank you, good.
So you heard our guest earlier, Mark. What did you think of his story?
Yeah, well, particularly the sport is obviously, from a fitness background, that's what I recommend in terms of getting kids outdoors, for one, because vitamin D is hugely important for the brain. So any kind of mental health issue, you need to have vitamin D, not just the brain, but all functions of the body. And also, you know, expend that energy, like you said, in the right way. And some kids are just more driven towards doing sport-related activities than they are academic-related activities, particularly the children that I work with. Sport is very helpful for them.
And what about nutrition now? Because I know that's what you also specialise in.
So nutrition, the best foods for someone who with, again, today's subject's ADHD, so you want to focus on proteins, fats, but particularly the most research that's gone into a link between improving ADHD and nutrition is towards cod liver oils and fish oils. So they're really essential, and something I always recommend to parents who have children with ADHD is to get them supplementing cod liver oils and fish oils because it's so powerful for helping the brain. Proteins obviously are full of amino acids. As long as the child can break them down, function optimally, they're going to help heal and repair any damage that's done either in the gut or in the brain, or, and give them the tools for the body to be able to heal itself.
Anything? Sorry, go ahead.
Which is very much my approach, is giving the body what it needs, and then the body will hopefully, to reduce any of the symptoms of ADHD, or not so much as a cure, but definitely to reduce the symptoms.
Is there anything that should be avoided at all costs in terms of food and beverages and things?
Definitely. I would, anything with preservatives, colourings, flavourings, additives in, because they're chemicals that the body isn't used to digesting. They find them very hard to digest those types of foods, and a lot of those foods are actually described as non-foods, which they actually take more energy to digest than they take to than they actually give to the body. That's what I mean. Yeah. So they're actually described as non-food. So they're not going to provide any nutrition, but the chemicals themselves can disrupt, the brain in many ways we don't even understand yet. But those really want to be avoided.
I mean that's bad for anyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just kids with any issues. It's just everyone in general, and it's like, but people don't read labels, and they don't. And it's not widely known as well.
Well, anything
that things are bad. Those kind of things, what they do to you, really.
Yeah, a guide that I give my clients is anything with a label probably is something you don't want to be buying anyway, because if it's got a list of ingredients, then it's been made, it's been manufactured, it's going to have things added to it. So you want to just try and get to the raw ingredients. Mm-hmm. So for example, a lot of the children I work with, they'll have toast for breakfast. So rather than take them completely off toast, because they love toast, they've been exposed to it, make, an almond bread that you can toast in the oven and make into a same kind of texture as toast, same kind of taste as toast. You can put butter on it, but it's a totally better ingredient than using, the wheat, the sugar, and all the other additives that are in particularly white bread these days, which can cause all sorts of problems. Yeah. And that's the way that I would go through a child's day or an adult's day, is look at what they're eating, breakfast, lunch and dinner, and making better choices around that, and then gradually giving them options that they still like to eat.
Yeah, so it's not about depriving yourself, it's just replacing things with something similar but without
to start with, that's all you can do. You can go more extreme than that, of course, and you can start, with chicken broths are very beneficial, mainly because they heal the gut, and again that's my approach, which is different to a lot of people, that I go in to heal the gut to help the brain. So there's a big gut-brain link through the vagus nerve, the enteric nervous system, into the bloodstream, and obviously then we get onto the gut bacteria, which is a huge subject.
Tell us a bit about it.
Well, we all have gut bacteria, and the latest research is that we're 90% bacteria, 10% human cells. Oh. So that's pretty scary, because we look like humans, but that's because the human cells are bigger. But bacteria, we need them to survive, and they need us to survive. But if you have an imbalance in bacteria, which is happening a lot nowadays from washing our hands too much, antibiotic abuse when kids are younger, it's actually destroying a lot of the good beneficial bacteria that produce your vitamin Bs, a lot of your amino acids. They do a lot of clearing up in the gut as well, and digest food that should be digested and assimilated into the body. So those guys are being killed off by antibacterial substances, and then they're not actually able to do their job for the body. And the knock-on effect of that is that you get an overgrowth of a bacteria that can be quite pathogenic, which can then release all sorts of toxins into the body, which can cause different problems in different people.
We need a whole subject on this, don't we, Ben?
We might do.
Wow, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so I won't go too much into it, but yeah.
We'll definitely cover this on the show one day.
Yeah, it'd be good. There's so much information on it that needs to be covered.
Well, the good thing is that Ben is one of our resident guests, so we'll definitely be getting him back on to discuss these things more, because we want to know all about health and nutrition.
Cool.
Ben, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again soon.
Excellent.
And on the fitness tips that you do as well. And Ben does fitness tips for us every now and then, and you can find those on our YouTube channel as well. Well, now it's time to take a look at this interview with Sharon Lawton, who gives some parenting tips. Hello, Sharon.
Hi, Chris.
So we brought you on today, Sharon, to talk about behaviour in general, because we're going to be obviously speaking about the more serious behaviour. But what I'd like to talk to you about is just generally about when kids are acting up and what you should do. So first of all, what are the reasons that kids act up in the first place? Is it just a case of attention seeking?
Interesting question, I think. And the first thing to remember is that all children between the ages of about 1 and 5 will experience temper tantrums. That's just a normal stage of development, and I think it's important for parents to remember that. In that sort of growing up development of that stage, children feel their feelings and emotions much more intently than we do as adults, and we've learned through experiences ways to deal with those feelings and emotions. And when they're really little, they are completely overwhelmed by those, and that's really difficult for them to handle. Having said that, in my experience, there are 3 reasons why children misbehave. And the first is around their temperament. The second is around a learned behaviour of some kind. And the third is an unmet need. So they're basically sort of categorised into those 3 areas.
Okay. And in terms of sort of disciplining a child, and maybe you're seeing that the child is getting a bit out of hand, a bit like mouthy, maybe even hits their parent, what kind of way would you deal with that? What's the best way to deal with it? Because obviously it's not a good idea to slap back or anything like that, but what would you advise?
Absolutely. It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, a child that is probably the most difficult tends to be the child that needs the most love and attention. And from the parent, of course, what they need is our patience and understanding. And that's very difficult when you're on the receiving end of somebody who, you know, is really misbehaving and maybe shouting at you and acting in a way that is totally inappropriate.
Yeah.
But I think for me, the most important part of parenting is the relationship. The relationship between parent and child is really, really important. So all children need to have boundaries set. And those boundaries need to be firm, fair and friendly. We can't be their friend. They don't need us to be their friend. They need us to be a parent. But having said that, you know, those boundaries need to be in a loving discipline style. And that's all about going back to thinking about what that word discipline means. So discipline comes from the word disciple, and that's around to mentor, to guide, to train. And that's what we're really doing. We're training our children to become self-regulating and responsible adults, really, so that they can contribute to society. So they need us to do that. The other thing which is really important, which connects back to the learnt behaviour, is about ensuring that really we have to make sure that we are demonstrating behaviour that is appropriate. So for example, if we are shouting at them because they haven't done something for us, then we ought not to be surprised if they're shouting back at us. And also, sometimes we might think that shouting works, but it's a very short-term thing, you know. Next time you might have to shout even louder, and of course that is not about building good relationships, no, and it's not about teaching respect, is it? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you, just around the discipline itself as well, apart from setting an example, because obviously we've seen on TV things like, you know, the naughty corner and stuff like that. Does that really work?
I think like a lot of strategies, if they're overused, they become ineffective. I tend, when I'm working with parents, not to talk about the naughty corner. So I think if you're put in a place that is sort of labelled as naughty, straight away it's not a place that I particularly want to go to if I was a child. So what I teach is going to sort of the time out space, or the calm down space, or the think about it space. So a child can reflect on their feelings in a way that actually is more appropriate, rather than it become a battle of you will sit in the naughty corner. So really, you know, at the end of the day, it's the same space and the same premise really, but it's just called something very, very different. And I think
the name of something, what we call something, is extremely important, because obviously naughty corner or something called that it sounds very negative and sounds like you're labelling that child as this is who you are and that's it kind of thing when you think about it.
And when we're talking about labels, we ought not to be surprised if our children live up to the labels that we give of them, you know. So if we're sort of saying, you know, that you were really naughty, go to the naughty corner, well, actually we're reinforcing the behaviour that we don't want.
Brilliant. Sharon, we've run out of time, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much to Sharon, and now it's time to hear from children's behaviour mentor Ricky Dean. What would you think is the best way then to deal with if a child, and even for parents at home that maybe have children with more challenging behaviour, or teachers say, what would you think is the best way to deal with a child that's really acting up, that's quite aggressive?
Well, ultimately, I think it's about, before even any of that comes up, in the sense of a teacher, if you're talking about maybe a supply teacher, then it's about dealing with the behaviour there and now. Where if it's in a sense where if it's a teacher that's got the chance to create their class, say coming from September, it's about installing those rules from the beginning. It's about letting them understand who you are as a person and your expectations, and make sure that your expectations up here in terms of the behaviour, and always reinforcing it, not in a forceful way, but in a way where, is that right that you're doing that? Making them reflect on their behaviour, making them question whether that's the right thing that they're doing.
Okay, so it's like setting rules right from the start.
Right from the
start.
I
suppose if a kid comes in and there's not that communication with the teacher from the start, then they'd feel quite detached. I suppose.
Yeah, that's correct.
But then like if you're there in front of the class and you're saying, right, this is what I expect from you, there's no mistake, there's no you know what's going on.
And also you use, I use fun, firm and fair. Okay. So it's about being fun at the fun times.
Yeah.
Be firm when you need to be. So if it is keeping them in at a particular time, or if it is depending on the system that they have in terms of behaviour, whether it's a strike or whether it's about keeping them in, then you would do that. Yeah. And then there's the fair part where you explain what you're going through. You explain that, okay, you've done this, and this is how I've seen it. Now I feel this is what needs to happen. And always give
they're quite responsive to.
Yeah, it's like being a mediator. So if, say for instance, you've got two children having an issue, air them both out. Let them both have a chance to have a voice and to explain how they feel, because then ultimately you don't really need to tell anybody off, because the child, as long as you give everyone each child the opportunity to say their part. And that's
what they want sometimes.
That's all they want to hear, because half the times it's they don't have the opportunity to express how they feel or explain to the other child how they felt. So it's about listening to both sides, repeating what you've heard, and then making them come to some form of agreement with that.
So I'd like to thank all our guests that we've had on the programme today, and I really hope it's been helpful for you at home too. So if you have a story that you would like to share, don't forget you can be part of this programme too. All you have to do is head over to our website, chrissybshow.tv, and contact us from there. You can also tweet us at Chrissy B Show or leave a message on our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. Until next time, bye for now.
So my son Ethan, we've had a really good time Ethan up here today, mate. It's been fabulous. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, we'd like to thank the Chrissy B Show for sharing our story and also raising awareness for other children and adults actually need to come forward.
Is no one speaking to me? It's great, guys, by the way. Really good. Yeah. I've got it in my ear, but no one's speaking to me. Luca? Hello, I can still hear you now. Are you still giving me the timings, or? That was very informative. I'm ready now. That's really interesting. I want to know everything. Welcome back everyone, and today we are discussing living with ADHD. Why have you moved it? Okay, thank you. Okay, so very interesting video. Thought very oh no, I forgot to thank the Mental Health channel, sorry. Can I do that bit again?
2, 1.
I'm ready now.